You ever have that feeling? You've got a task, maybe it's even the simple one. You sit down, you've got the time, you've got everything you need, and then just nothing. You just can't start. Well, that feeling, it's often called task paralysis, and it's this incredibly frustrating mental roadblock that so many of us face. So let's get into why this actually happens, and more importantly, what we can do about it.
This quote from All UHD Psychiatry just hits home, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that bizarre feeling of being mentally frozen in place. We're not talking about just getting distracted for a minute. For a lot of people, this is a very real and honestly a very distressing barrier to just getting things done.
You know, for the longest time, we've had this all wrong. We beat ourselves up, right? We think, I'm just lazy, or I just don't have enough discipline. But a ton of research is showing that this isn't a moral failing at all. It's an emotional struggle. It's actually your brain's defense mechanism kicking in because it feels totally overwhelmed.
So let's just get this straight right from the very beginning. The problem is not you. It's not about your character. What's really going on is a battle happening inside your brain, a biological response that we can actually understand and learn to work with.
The real key concept here is something called emotion regulation. See, procrastination was never really about managing your time. It's always been about managing your feelings. We are hardwired as humans to avoid things that make us feel bad. Things that trigger anxiety or frustration or even just intense boredom. The procrastination itself, that's just the symptom of a much deeper desire to avoid those uncomfortable feelings.
So what is literally happening inside your head when you just freeze? This is where the neuroscience of getting stuck gets really, really interesting.
Okay, I want you to think of it like a little turf war between two parts of your brain. First, you've got the amygdala. This is your ancient primal threat detector. It's lightning fast, and it's what triggers that fight, flight, or, and this is the important one for us, freeze response. Then you have the prefrontal cortex. This is like the calm, logical CEO of your brain. It handles all the planning and reasoning. Well, when you get stressed or overwhelmed by a task, the amygdala basically hijacks the entire system, and your logical CEO gets completely locked out of the office.
This whole brain battle often leads to something called executive dysfunction. It's a really key term for when your brain's management system is just struggling to do its job. Basic things like organizing your thoughts, breaking down a big project, or even just initiating the first step. And I'll say it again, this is not laziness. This is your brain's wiring getting jammed up.
And get this isn't just some fleeting, in-the-moment thing. Chronic stress can actually physically weaken the prefrontal cortex over time, which makes it even harder to override that amygdala panic button. But, and this is a huge but, here's the really hopeful part: neuroplasticity. Your brain has this incredible ability to adapt and literally rewire itself. And that means we are not stuck like this forever. We can actively train our brains to be more resilient.
Okay, so you might be thinking, isn't this just a fancy word for putting things off? Well, not quite. And it's actually really empowering to know the difference. So let's get super clear on these terms. The biggest difference, really, it all comes down to control. Procrastination is usually a conscious choice to delay something. You know you could do the thing, but you'd just rather scroll on your phone. Task paralysis, on the other hand, is completely involuntary. It's a freeze response that's driven by this intense anxiety and overwhelm. You genuinely want to start, but you just can't. And this is exactly why a lot of the standard productivity advice, like just do it, totally backfires when you're dealing with paralysis. All right, that's enough about the why. Let's switch gears and talk about the how. We've put together some really powerful, evidence-based strategies to help you build your own personal anti-freeze toolkit.
One of the most effective systems out there for tackling this kind of cognitive overload is David Allen's Getting Things Done method. The whole idea is to get every single thing out of your head. So first, you capture all of your to-dos on paper or in an app. Then you clarify what each one actually is. After that, you organize them into a system that you trust. You reflect on it regularly, and then finally, you can engage with your tasks with confidence. It frees up an unbelievable amount of mental space.
Okay, so when you're in that freeze state, your amygdala is screaming danger. You have to find a way to calm your nervous system down. Box breathing is a fantastic and super simple way to do this. All you do is inhale for a count of 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold again for 4. Just doing that a few times can literally interrupt that panic signal and bring your logical brain back online.
And here are a few more quick wins for you. The number one rule here is to lower the barrier to starting as much as possible. So instead of your task being write the report, your first step is just open laptop. That's it.
Or maybe add some music, use a timer, text a friend and ask them to check in on you in 20 minutes. Even just standing up and doing a few jumping jacks can reboot your focus. The goal is to find whatever gives your brain that tiny little nudge it needs to get going.
But of all the tools we've talked about, this might be the most important: self-compassion. Because shame is the fuel for the fire of avoidance. When you beat yourself up for getting stuck, you're just adding more negative emotion to the task, which makes it even harder to start next time. It's wild, but research actually shows that forgiving yourself for procrastinating breaks the cycle and makes you less likely to do it again in the future. So look, the journey from feeling stuck to actually getting started isn't about some giant leap of willpower. It's about taking the smallest, most ridiculously tiny step you can think of, armed with the right tools and, just as importantly, a little bit of self-kindness. I absolutely love this quote from David Allen because it just gets right to the heart of the issue. When we try to hold everything in our heads, all the tasks, the worries, the plans, we create the exact kind of cognitive overload that causes paralysis in the first place. So get it out, externalize it, write it down, put it on a whiteboard, whatever it takes. So as we wrap this up, I'm going to leave you with this one question. Not for tomorrow, not for later today, but for right now. What is one tiny, manageable step you can take to get an idea out of your head and into the world? It could be writing just one thing on a to-do list. It could be sending a one-sentence email. Or it could be just taking a single, deep, four-sided breath. That first tiny step is all it ever takes to get moving again.